This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Chris, welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.
It's great to be here, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. If you could, start off just by telling the audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Chris Stathos, and by day, I am Manager of Partnership Development at the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been playing pretty well at the moment, which is great, but can change at any time, so you have to be ready for things to go the wrong way, but they're looking pretty good. And yeah, I've been doing that for, that particular role for just over a year, but I've been with the organization for 7 seasons. This is season 7, and certainly been an exciting time during that 7-year run.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats on your growth and your longevity there at the Chiefs. You know, what's your why? Why professional sports? Why the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like I kind of have 2 distinct whys. So the why with the Chiefs is really the platform that I have, the way that I can use sport to impact people's lives. And I have a story about that I can talk about at length later that I think kind of relates to that. Because at the end of the day, the Chiefs are really just a unifier for people and a way for people to connect with something that's, it's a cliche, but bigger than themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, which is kind of, we'll talk about, I'm sure as well, is this passion on seeing students kind of engage with their why in some ways, or what they really think they might be wanting to do with their lives, and really thinking of that kind of late high school, early college years. And that's been something that's kind of been more in the COVID, time here that I've been thinking about this. But as I've thought about that why, it's really, how do I activate or help activate ambitious students to rewrite the rule books for their lives? So those are kind of the 2 distinct whys that I would say I'm living in all the time. And I think that answers the question probably.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that story. I think it's an awesome segue to kind of give viewers a little bit more background into how you got to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am from Kansas City originally. And when I was 6, my mom and I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up there. And when I graduated high school, I had an opportunity to come back to the Kansas City area, went to William Jewell College. And, it was just an amazing 4 years for me. I had the opportunity to pursue passions in the sports business world, which I really kind of just discovered after my freshman year. I did an internship back in Cleveland with the soon-to-be whatever they're going to be, the now Indians, but they are currently the Indians. And
hopefully they don't call them the Cleveland baseball team for a season.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. They'll keep the name for another year, and then we'll see what happens after that. But started there, and then just kind of progressively worked for multiple different organizations, the Chiefs being one, but then Sporting KC, the Browns, and then the NFL in New York. So I had a chance to really see a lot of different facets of the sports business world, and decided that I really liked being on the team side of things, and, kind of bugged the Chiefs about this job opportunity that was there until they gave it to me. I was literally, I needed to give an answer to another organization that happens to be across the street from the Chiefs. And they were basically kind of like giving me a deadline of when I needed to give them an answer. And I really wanted the Chiefs job more. And at first it looked kind of silly because, hey, they went on to win a World Series and go to 2 straight in 14 and 15 right after I graduated. Yeah. And, but I knew the Chiefs job was the one for me and the one I wanted. And it ended up working out. And like I said, here I am 7 years later, kind of hard to believe, but started out in our partnership activation team, working kind of as an account manager on some of our biggest clients, Bud Light, Coca-Cola, Hy-Vee. And then last year had an opportunity to move over to the business development role that I'm in now, actively seeking new partnership opportunities for the Chiefs. So that's my day-to-day and what I'm solely focused on now. But spent a good 5.5 years in that other role, really learning the ins and the outs of the industry and just getting a chance to make an impact through those partnerships that I managed. And I'll just have a lot of fondness for that time in my life, but certainly learning a lot of new things now. And it's been great to, challenge myself in new ways.
For sure. Yeah, I think anyone who has tried to get into professional sports or even any really well-known company, it can be pretty competitive when they're sought after. So I guess just quick sidebar for those millennials out there who are listening who were trying to get into those competitive places. What advice do you have for them? I know you said you just pestered the Chiefs till they gave it to you, but any other strategy?
It would take me 2 hours to go through all of it, but I will try to narrow it down. So
we'll have a separate episode on that.
Absolutely. I really think that, you have to just have a humble attitude and be willing to do whatever. I'm very lucky, and I realize that every day that I got to jump right into the NFL with an NFL organization. That is an amazing thing, but that's not the norm all the time. I mean, there are many other facets of the business outside of working for a team or working for a league. There's brands that work with sports teams. Obviously, I mentioned a few of the brands that I worked with with the Chiefs while I was on the activation side. Yeah. There are agencies, there are, minor league teams. There's so many facets. I think people kind of get the glitz and the glamour of professional sports can kind of blind people to the opportunities that are out there. So I think being open to different opportunities that can help you then transition later, maybe into a role like I'm in now.
Find some stepping stones, so to speak.
Absolutely. And also to just, just finding the right people in your life, I think is more valuable than anything else. Like if you can find people who are willing to invest in you, I think, you'll have a lot more opportunity later down the line. And that's very true for me. I had people who were willing to invest in my career pursuits and then ultimately, be the people for me that are like the personal board of directors. So there's so much noise out there. Yeah. Telling people what to do. And it's just really, you got to kind of tune it out and just keep grinding every day and you'll get to where you want to be. And I'm always happy to talk to people more about kind of my path and how I got to where I am. But I really think everyone's path's so different, and you can never prescribe one set path. There's so many different ways. So
that's a great point. You mentioned getting the right people surrounded around you. In our previous conversation before recording, one word that kept coming up in our conversation was this word game changers, or, finding the game changing moments, finding the game changing people. So I guess at a high level, tell listeners, what's your stance, or, what comes to mind when you say game changer?
Yeah, for me, game changers is a concept that I've really recently been kind of teasing out. I think I wouldn't be where I am today without game changing people and experiences. I think that the Chiefs experience as an intern and the NFL experience as an intern in particular were really game-changing opportunities. Number one, because the Chiefs ended up being the organization I went to work for later. So the fact that they knew who I was prior to me, coming to work for them full time was a game changer. The NFL, certainly the brand of the NFL, it's the shield. Everybody is really, obviously, wants to talk about that. How was that experience working in New York? And for the NFL, it's, obviously the biggest, sports league in the country. And so, that was a game changer. But then the people were game changers. The people like Dr. Kelly Scuddy, who's the chair and a professor of business at William Jewell College. She supported my pursuits in ways that I'll never be able to really just adequately repay her for, by helping me get that 40-hour a week internship and figure out how am I going to do this with college and everything else I had on my plate. How am I going to do that? And then there's so many others I could name, forever, but the people, the opportunities, I mean, those things that just take your path and immediately elevate you to another level. That to me is what game changers are all about.
Yeah. So Chris, at a high level, what would be your suggestion for millennials who are seeking out mentors and how to go about building those relationships?
I think start authentically. Probably don't start any conversation with, it's not going to be, hey, will you be my mentor? I don't think that ever really, mentorship has to be organic and authentic at the end of the day.
Yep.
Otherwise it doesn't work. It feels like a transaction.
Yep.
I think mentorship at its best is something that just forms naturally over time. I know that the people who I would call a mentor today were, for the most part, not someone that was assigned to me, other than maybe, like I said, my collegiate advisor, who happened to end up being one of my biggest fans, or I was part of a program while I was at the NFL in New York that assigned a mentor, and
Wow.
that just happened to be a guy that I really resonated with, and we're still close to this day. But for the most part, it's just going to be people that you meet along the way who get to know you and get to know your character and understand that you are someone worth investing in. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that like some people are worth more than others. That's not what I mean. It's really just people can see the drive that you have, and they understand that you're a person of integrity and someone that is going to, not waste their time, if that makes sense. It's not going to be something where they invest a ton of effort and resources in you and you just kind of blow it or blow it off and say, oh, that's great, but whatever, Right. I mean, I clearly had, reason to ask these people to be in my life, even though I never really did that. I never asked them that question, but I just kept the relationship, in a place where I called on them to be a resource for me, and they always stepped up to the plate. And I'm so grateful for that, because without them, I couldn't be where I am.
What do the next maybe 3 to 5 years look like for you in terms of your personal vision and goals, things like that, both professionally, personally?
Yeah, professionally, I mean, I love getting to represent the Kansas City Chiefs every day. It's a privilege to, to be able to represent the brand, and we're always told that. I mean, it's we have to remember that everything we do is a reflection of the brand and the ownership group that we have, and we have such great owners in the Hunt family that have given us a real opportunity to to go do something really special because of the product that they've invested in to put onto the football field, that in turn has created so much buzz and good for the city. It's really those off the field things that get me excited, because we look at the work that our players are doing, or that we're doing as an organization to try to make our city, our region better. That's what it's all about. It's really the efforts that we can make off the field that's fueled by the on the field success, certainly, but we have a real opportunity to steward this thing well. I mean, we're one of 32 organizations that gets to be part of the National Football League. Yeah. And while, there's organizations much bigger than ours, I mean, we're not a large operation by any means from a day-to-day full-time standpoint. More people probably want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs than, name a random company in the Fortune 500, right? Because it's exciting, and it's, Super Bowl champs. It's great. Yeah, it's fun. And all those things are true. But again, for me, it's the platform that I've been able to use. And if you'll indulge a story real quick.
Yeah, certainly.
The story I kind of always point to of what it means to me to get a chance to work for the Kansas City Chiefs is about 5 years ago. I came to know the story of a guy who was battling a form of cancer and was at the Mayo Clinic for treatments. He was connected in with a partner of ours at the time, and someone at that partner organization said, "Hey, I know this guy, he's going through this. Would you send him something? He loves Dustin Colquitt." And I'm like, yeah, 100%, let's do it. Yeah. So I just reached out to our community outreach team and got a Dustin Colquitt item and sent it to him. Thought that would be the end of it, that it would just cheer him up. That'd be awesome. And that I'd be doing, my duty, and got a note back from him, and he's like, I'm going to make it to the home opener this year. That's my goal. If I make it, you come out and visit us. We tailgate in Lot D. I'm like, absolutely, 100%. And so I'm thinking he'll forget about it, or I'll forget about it, one of the two. But he didn't forget about it, and he let me know he was going to be there. And I was like, we got to get him on the field. We got to do something special. Yeah. So he did. And then again, I thought that'd be the end of it. But he and I just kept up with each other. And fast forward to February 2nd, 2020, who's sitting next to me besides my wife at the Super Bowl? It's him and his wife and his son, because of the generosity of the Hunt family allowing us to bring guests with us who paid their own way, but at cost, which is significant discount. And he had always told me, Chris, if we go to the Super Bowl, I'm going no matter what. And I'm taking my family with me. And I said, well, I'll do you one better. Do you want to go with me? And so you take those 5 years, and there's so much that happened in those 5 years, both for him and for me, in his own health journey and in my life. And so it's just, that encapsulates for me what it means to be a steward of the brand.
Yeah.
Because I was the person at the Chiefs that he looks at and thinks of when he thinks of, outside of the player, he thinks of the Chief, he thinks of me. And so I just have such a responsibility to give that back to whomever it is that I'm interacting with that wants to have a special experience with the Chiefs brand in some way. And so that means more than, and I say this all the time, it means more to me than the ring. Like the ring is an awesome reminder of the fun that the 2019 season was, but stories like that of mine and my friend means more to me than the ring.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's no better thing than impacting people's lives. Yep. That's a really cool story. Thanks for sharing. As we wrap up here, got a couple key questions I ask every guest. Before we do that, I just wanted to air it up one last time. If there was anything else you wanted to say about game changers in general, anything we talked about today. If not, no worries, we can move on.
Yeah, I think you mentioned, what are your goals kind of personally as well. I would say I'm continuing to kind of think about what does this thing look like to impact the lives of, that maybe high school senior to college sophomore, that person who's really in that development stage of like, where am I going with my life? What am I doing?
Yep.
And like I said, I want to activate ambitious students to rewrite the rule books for their lives, because for so many, the rule book says, oh, I've got to go look at that college that my mom or dad went to, or I've got to, go study this because that's what everyone expects me to do. Or I've got to get a good job when I get out of college. So I need to do this because that's going to get me a good job. I think you should rewrite the rule book, write the rule book that fits what you're trying to do with your life, not what other people want you to do with it. So, as I think more about that, I think about the amazing students that I get a chance to run across all the time that hit me up on LinkedIn, say, hey, can I have 30 minutes of your time? And I'm always willing to do that. But, as I think more about it, we're living in a time where these kinds of calls over Zoom make a ton of sense. So maybe it's getting a group of students together every month or every quarter to, answer questions about being in the sports industry. And I'm having those active conversations with educators and with people in the space to kind of understand where's their opportunity to really impact the lives of people who are really thinking about the future for themselves in a really direct way, more than, and hey, you know what? I was in high school once, and I understand there's a desire to just kind of coast and slack off sometimes, and that's fine. But at some point, you're going to have to figure out what it is that you're really passionate about and you want to do. And how do you do that? And I feel like I kind of was able to chart a path at Jewel that no one else really ever had in the sports industry, or at least not to the extent that I was able to do it. So I feel like I have a little bit of street cred to some degree on, I've done this, I've kind of charted a path, and I know kind of how to guide students in that way. So anyway, that's my, thank you for indulging me on that. That's my kind of personal, I think, vision for the next few years.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it ties in well with what you're doing with the Chiefs brand, like you said, being a steward of the brand. So I have no doubt that you'll succeed in that regard as well, as far as impacting the lives of youth. So I commend you for that. Well done. And then lastly, what people, books, or resources have made an impact on your life or your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, off the top of my head, again, people, I'd be remiss if I didn't give shout outs to people like Kelly Scuddy, Corey Shear, Jared Schoenfeld, Tyler Epp. There's so many people across so many different organizations that I could thank. I'm so thankful for all of them in the role that they played in very different ways for me. Books. That's a great question. I'm always kind of like, I've got a nose in a book one day, and then I'm like off to another the other day. I'm really bad at like staying consistent with like one book over a long period of time. But I will say one nugget of truth, and I think the title would just kind of distract. But the nugget from one book that I read this year that was really helpful was the idea of rest versus restoration. And I think we're living in such a distracted world right now, and we have for quite a long time, just with technology, what it is. It's a great thing, but can be very distracting. Yeah. I think, this was certainly in more of a religious context, but how I think it can apply beyond that too. Yeah. How do you create restoration over relaxation? There's a difference between, I think there's a passive act in kind of a relaxation versus a restoration is more active. And I think that we need that more than ever now, especially being stuck in kind of the cocoons that we are, during quarantine and a time where we're not getting out like we were. It's easy to kind of just like, binge out on Netflix or do something that's really passive. Yeah. But taking those active steps towards restoration and restorative, things like whatever it is for you, whether it's a walk, in the park with your dog, or if it's, going out and, doing something in nature, whatever it might be, there's so many things that we, I think need more of, help us, be more engaged with those we love most.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. I think that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And then lastly, where can people get in touch with you if they want business or professional advice, professional or personal advice?
Yeah. LinkedIn's the best place to find me. Chris Stathos, pretty easy. Stathos. I'm again happy to talk to anybody. I've been thinking more about kind of creating maybe the space for, especially if it's a college student who wants to talk about sports business in particular, might be creating some quarterly Zooms or some monthly Zooms to kind of help engage in that space. But yeah, more to come certainly on the personal stuff. I'm just really trying to develop what this looks like and just give back in any way I can, because I think it's important to do that.
Fantastic. We'll link your contact information and a lot of the stuff that we talked about today in the show notes of the podcast. Chris, thanks so much for your time and insights tonight. I have no doubt that you'll continue to be successful with the Chiefs, and more importantly, as we talked about, make an impact on the KC community at large. So congrats and best wishes to you.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.